Hello, socios. Welcome to your exclusive big interview. Indeed, welcome to the Ledley King Show. Going into this interview, I was pretty disgusted that the majority of public interviews I've seen with Ledley King in many of the recent years have been reduced to talking about his injuries or how he wouldn't train but still played brilliantly. His career was exceptional. People rate him as being one of the great English central defenders. I think he played more than 350 top-level professional matches, and therefore I was far more interested in the high points of his career, his attitude, his development, the people he'd seen, what he'd been a witness to. I also reckon that Ledley must be pretty sick of talking about injuries. So we didn't. Thus, this interview is about where he came from, the place and the people, including next-door neighbour Ashley Cole and John Terry, somebody who made an impact on Ledley, even when they played together as young kids. It's also about the ties that bind him to Spurs, his memories of the lane, the big games that he was a big part of, and the players and managers of his era as a Tottenham legend and, frankly, one of the best defenders in Premier League history. Ledley is now Chief Executive Officer of 7 of the Best, a free-to-play online football predictor game. It's not gambling affiliated, and you can either play on your own or in a team of 7. Listen in after this interview and I'll tell you how it works. For now, luxuriate in the great Ledley King. We're in Waltham Abbey after a cross-country journey where we risked life and limb and aquaplaned down the M25A1 from Stamford. But Neil and I adore Ledley King, who's sitting opposite me in this beautiful sort of Amish-built barn of a Waltham Abbey hotel. And it's a blooming honour. I say this at the beginning because we handpick our guests, footballers that we really, really admire, or people like Jamie Murray or Martin Compson, who talk about football brilliantly. You're here because we just loved watching you play. You seem to us to have, I would use the word brilliance. I want to start a little bit strangely. A couple of months ago, I was up with Quentin Fortune at Manchester United's training ground on a dark, cold, windy night watching their 16s, who were very, very good. And they played in what they called the cage. And I was talking to a fella there, and they've built this on their multi-million-pound training ground. I was talking to a fella there who said, it's meant to replicate the thing that none of us grew up with anymore, but we all did when ball players played in the street. And dodged lampposts and cars and dogs and cops and whatever. And from our research, it turns out that the cage that they're trying to replicate at Manchester United had a really big influential part in your development as a footballer, your love of football, but also your love of a good childhood. Yep. Can you capture it for us? Paint a picture so that people are with you in your cage.
Well, I think that I was fortunate that where I lived, there happened to be a cage and 2 football goals, and I obviously developed a love of football at an early age. And
what is it? Tell people what it is, so that because some people just will not know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concrete playing field with just a cage fencing around it. So I think first and foremost it was safety, that my mum could watch me from our flat where we lived, and you could lock the cage. So
could you really?
you could lock the kids in from the outside, which which was good.
That's an unusual tactic, but okay, it worked. So let's roll with it.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes
the ball was always in play.
Yeah, there was no out of play. There was no lines. You played off the cage. So if the ball bounced, hit the cage, you'd control it off the cage and play on from there. Likewise behind the goal, there'd be no corners or anything like that. So that's really where I learned to develop as a footballer. Playing street football, with 20, sometimes 30 other kids in there, not much space for us to kind of really run with the ball. But you had to learn to have a good touch and good feet to get yourself out of situations.
Well, then, just breaking down, microscoping a little bit what it's teaching you. Your first touch, movement, like technique, vision,
strength, body strength, obviously peripheral vision. All these different things. As I say, there wasn't much space in terms of being able to really open up your legs and run.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what football was about for us. It was about the ball, being on the ball, being able to manipulate the ball in tight situations, holding people off, which is an important part of football today. Especially midfield players, strikers. They need to be able to shield balls, be comfortable receiving balls with people running at them. So these things that we learnt in the cage are a big part of today's football.
So in them days, who called the fouls? Were there fouls?
Was
that a tough school?
I think you just all just agreed whether it was a foul or not. So obviously it would be debatable. There'd be sometimes you just say play on. Everyone would say play on. Sometimes you get someone who picked the ball up, say no, it was a foul,
and you had to negotiate that out.
Sometimes you just let them have it, let them take the free kick, and sometimes you just drop ball for a situation.
See, when I rant and rave about this, because I do, being somebody who adores Cruyff and the Dutch school of street football, proper street football, I do rant and rave a little bit about this. People who listen to the big interview, I've kind of heard this theme a little bit from me. But one of the things that one might miss when you're describing it is, at the time, were you really aware that you were learning and developing skills, or was it really just fun?
No, it was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun. And the good thing about it is that you learn to do a bit of everything in terms of defend and attack. You kind of roam around the pitch. I obviously ended up as a defender, but back then when I was younger, it wasn't so much about being a defender. It was about being an all-rounder, being able to shoot. It just so happened that I developed as a defender, but I could have probably played in midfield if I was coached into playing midfield. I reckon I could have played in there. If you asked me when I was 10, 11, I'd have told you I could have been a striker. But whether I could or not, I'm not sure.
The world loves goals,
yeah, exactly.
don't they?
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and again, if this is sort of fantasy from me, then say so. But as you're playing in a relatively small area, and there's 20 or 30, as you've described, does it ever go through your head, like, if I ever get on this ball, I want to make the most of it. I'm not going to give it away cheaply, because if you got 20, 30 people, the ball ain't going to be with you all that much.
It doesn't always find you, of course, yeah. And it's interesting because I played with some kids who were great in the cage, and on a full-size pitch, you couldn't find them. And it was a strange one to me. There's players that were so technically gifted in the cage, and when they had space on a bigger pitch, you thought they'd be better, they'd thrive, but they were worse. Which is interesting, but you try to make the most of.
Can you figure that in any way, retrospectively? Can you?
I think, I don't know. Sometimes you can get players that, when they have too much time, different things too much goes through their head. They don't make the right decisions. But it was a strange one for me, and I always thought that these players would go on and kind of do well, but they didn't.
If I'm right, vaguely, we're talking Roman Road in Bow.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, for a poor Scot who lives in Spain, Bow Bells, is that right?
That's right, Bow Bells, yeah.
Just a little. We did this, poor old Martin Noble. We had him round every garden in his neighbourhood and fishing in the Thames as a kid.
Yeah.
Just give me a little flavour of Bow in 1980.
Early 80s, yeah. To me, it was home. I didn't know any different. I'm sure, looking back now, it was quite rough. There was a lot of kids that would hang on the streets. I was lucky that football took me a different path. Generally there was kids that were really into music. There was someone like Wiley, who's a big UK artist who was always interested in music from an early age. And then there was the football lot. Myself, Ashley Cole, a lad called J. Lod Samuel. We grew up, of course, within, across the road from each other, and
all three of you.
All three of us, yeah. And we were the football kids, and then you get the ones that are not really interested in football and never had much to do and would just roam the streets. And of course, roaming the streets can get you in trouble when you're bored and you don't have much to do. But I was lucky that I had a distraction, which was football, which I loved.
See, that was a little bit of light down on your mum saying, you saying your mum kind of could look down on you kind of thing. Yeah. There was a degree, you kind of meant that she was just having an eye out for you. Was there a sense of community? What did the community feel like in Bow then?
I always felt safe in my own community. I would say that you didn't have to go too far to find trouble though.
Is that right?
Although you felt safe in your own neighbourhood, you could travel 10 minutes away and find trouble quite easily. And I think that's something that still goes on today to a certain degree. We've heard of postcode wars and stuff like that. Which I'm sure it was around during my days, but I was a relatively good kid and kind of kept myself to myself.
And football drew you. Football really was a magnet for you.
Yeah, football was a magnet for me, and there was as I say, a group of us that were known as the footballers, and kind of had a respect from our older peers.
That
for being
feels
good at football.
Good, right?
It does.
Because some of the people, I'm not talking about ball now, I'm talking about my experience.
Yeah.
Some of the times when people go wrong in any neighbourhood, in any era, is looking for respect in the wrong way by, falling into bad company, or I can handle it, doing X or Y. But football or sport giving respect is a massive thing then.
Yeah. And it was so simple for us, It was what we loved doing. And obviously the more respect you gain, the more you enjoy doing it, the more you want to improve, the more you want to get as far as you can.
So I met Ashley and talked to him, and I really, really enjoyed it. Went down to Cobham, spent time talking to him one-on-one, and completely different to the rubbish that you would read about him.
Of course,
And I really enjoyed his company, and he was witty and a phenomenal athlete, very, very high-level footballer. Go back to Roman Road and Bow. You said he's a neighbour.
Yep.
Rival, friend, teammate. What was your little world?
Friend. As we got older, I became a rival because of school. School at an early age, become a school rival.
Two different schools.
Two different schools. We went to two different schools. He went to school in Bow, and I went to school in Poplar, which was a little bit further out. So that was the first kind of rivalry. You're playing against his school team, and you know that he's a very good player. I thought myself as a good player then, and you want to get the best of each other. And Ashley was a striker as a kid.
Oh, was he? I didn't know
He
that.
was a striker as a kid. He was a prolific striker.
So you were one-on-one in that case, or at least you were covering his area. I don't know if.
Yeah, I mean,
was he still playing off the left then?
He was just centre forward. Centre forward. He was just a centre forward. And funny enough, we ended up at rival Sunday league teams. But it started at school. Yeah. Started at school. The rivalry started at school.
If I dare, because we've got a good glass of water there.
Yeah.
Who came off best in school days? Do you remember any matches, incidents?
I did. I did.
It's a straight question. You can be answered. You can be truthful.
You have to think about it. He might tell you he did.
That's that Poplar Bowl thing, isn't it?
When I was in school, I'd often play in midfield as well.
Yeah. I saw you often play professionally in midfield too, particularly initially at Spurs.
Yeah.
Not knowing your background when I was working in London, to see you beginning a lot in midfield and then going back naturally to centre back, I thought that had been a sort of big change for you. But you did both as a kid, right?
As a kid, yeah. I mean, as soon as I joined Tottenham at the age of 14, I was a centre half, straight through. In fact, everywhere I was a centre half, apart from school. I'd play a bit of both, and I think at school I'd try and influence the game, playing in midfield, have a bit more of an impact. Lucky enough, my Sunday league team, we had a very good team, and we had very good midfield players at the time. I didn't need to try and influence that because we had John Terry playing in front of me in midfield. For my Sunday league team.
You're playing centre half and he's in front of you?
He was a centre midfield player.
Okay, listen. Right. Got to understand this.
Yeah.
This is Senrab.
This is Senrab.
I didn't know John played as a midfielder.
He did, and he was a small lad. When we was 11 years old, John was small, but he still had that same
the fight
in him. He was different to all the other kids in terms of he would put his head in where the feet were, and as kids, that was unheard of. John would do that, and he had great timing in the air, even as a small kid. He would win so many headers in front of me, and I think he must have had a bit of a growth spurt, between maybe 11, 14, 15, and that's why he's technically gifted as well. And that's why he's so comfortable at the back, because he had that education of playing in midfield before he went to centre back.
We sat down and did this with Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
And one of the things we asked him about was, a lot of time spent playing with Rio. at West Ham and Manchester United. And I asked him, because the listeners feed back to us that they like hearing the process of football.
Yeah.
So I asked Michael about how much communication did he need to have with Rio. And he said, well, listen, a nod and a glance and whatever. So as kids, I'm still talking about the Sunday team now. When he was in front of you and you were behind, what did you need? Was it natural? Did you need to talk? How did you work that?
I think John was the natural talker, even back then. He was that kind of. He had that die-hard mentality. But I think if I look at the other players in the team, that's where John stood out. And I was a quiet lad as a kid, so I think it was just a kind of natural thing for myself.
With the ball coming on to you, you should kind of be bossing him. He might be protecting you.
That's right. Yeah, John was bossing everyone. So he had that in him from a young age.
So what did that? If that's because I was going to ask you about saying now because I don't fully understand it, but I hear it again and again and again. Yeah. I mean, it's like if people get mad about La Masia at Barcelona now and its productivity and what it teaches you. Where were you? You were playing on grass, weren't you?
Yeah.
Wanstead
Flats, yeah.
Wanstead Flats. Yeah. Is that, for those who don't have Midtjylland, is that the equivalent of Hackney Marshes? Is that the Rex pitches?
It's similar to Hackney Marshes. It's the same kind of thing. So
again, make us a word picture of, let's say, one of the first games you're arriving there.
Yeah.
You're now not playing in the cage on concrete in a neighbourhood that you know about. What's it like? I kind of get this feeling that there must be like fleets of cars, people everywhere, and maybe I'm betraying something about my own nature here. It could be quite intimidating the first couple of times you go there.
I think
say no if you mean no.
You're naturally a little bit nervous once you start playing in front of a little bit of an audience. You know, you've got obviously parents there. You've got lots of different games going on at the same time.
Yeah.
On the pitches, and I think it does take a little bit of time to get used to playing on a bigger pitch, playing in front of people. But at the same time, when you're young, you're just enjoying it. You're doing what you love doing, and that kind of takes over.
What did it smell of? Did it smell of wintergreen or aftershave, or were there older boys with was it beer?
It didn't smell of aftershave. No. It was too young for aftershave. But the change rooms had a distinct smell of that, like mud, a little bit dirt. I'd often remember how cold it used to get there.
Yeah. Hot water?
The hot water. I don't think we were showering back then. I think we. It sounds terrible. When you're young, you kind of.
No, listen, if I can share back to Fernando Hierro, great Madrid Spain thing, which is like, we used to drive for miles from the training ground back to Bolton before we got showered. He said we were caked in mud, and he said sometimes I just scraped it off and went home. Yeah. So that's not unique.
I think when we was about 10 or 11, if someone was in the shower, we would have looked at them strange. So it was quite natural for us to just go jump in the car after. Filthy and shower at home.
Yeah. And was it well maintained? Because we've obviously played amateur football all over Scotland, and occasionally you'll find bad pitches, dogs that lie down it, bottles, whatever, and the dressing rooms can be smashed windows. Or was this a place that people respected and looked after?
Yeah, I think people respected it. I went there a few years back, and obviously brought back some memories, but it was exactly the same.
Yeah.
It was well looked after, well maintained. If anything, it's probably not as much football going on there now as there was.
Does that worry you?
Which, it was a little bit worrying. It was a little bit. And the same thing happened with the cage. I've driven past that cage and it's been empty.
Can you understand that? If you go back and remember the passion of, presumably you were like, get me out of school, get me into the cage, Saturday morning, let's get down, who's playing? Yeah. This is what we both feel. Yeah. Can you understand how people don't have that?
I mean, I was shocked to see it, and it's a few times I've seen it now, but there's so many other distractions now for kids that obviously keeps them in and stops them from going out and just.
But we say that that's the phrase. So many distractions, but as good.
No, not for the better.
No.
We learnt so much just being outside, learning to deal with people, communicate, work your way out of situations. And obviously for me and some others, make a career from what started is just going outside and kicking the ball around.
Did Britain lose a first-class boxer or karate man when you opted for football rather than... You had,
No chance.
you,
Do you know what?
you had the gloves on,
boxing,
didn't you?
Boxing was in my family. My uncle boxed professionally, and he boxed in the Olympics for GB.
Come on. Which? Which Olympics would it maybe be?
It was in the 80s. I remember.
That's a huge honour to represent your country.
Yeah, I mean, he was going to go on to have a good career. You know, he was a middleweight. He was around the Ben Eubank era. I think he fought Ben twice as an amateur. Won one, lost one.
Bloomin' heck. For anybody who doesn't remember Ben and Eubank, if you can get in the ring and come out standing with them, never mind win one, lose one, that's talent.
Yeah, I mean, his name was Rod Douglas, and unfortunately, I think it was his 21st professional fight. I think he took a bit of a big step up, and he lost the fight. He fought with a guy called Errol Graham, who was
Bomber Graham.
Bomber Graham, yeah. In his 21st fight, and he fell into a coma after the fight, and that was his last fight, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, that was sad to see. He was a young, I think he was 23 at the time, and that was tough for him.
Yeah. But so, in other words, well, full respect to him in that case. And sorry if we've gone to a difficult area.
Yes.
But when you had the gloves, did it mean anything to you?
I didn't allow myself to enjoy another sport. I loved football, and I actually didn't want to enjoy anything else. I remember going karate once, and I forced myself not to really enjoy it. I think boxing was the same. My dad used to put head guard on me and box around with me, but yeah, I was determined not to enjoy anything else, just in case it took me away from football.
There's a passionate love for football you've got then.
Yeah, it was as a young kid, of course.
To force yourself not to like something else is a really clear way of thinking, to tell yourself, like, God blimey, just in case I get hooked on ping pong or darts or karate or boxing, that would ruin something that is my number one passion. That's a really clear way of thinking at 14, 15.
I don't know if it's the right way to think about it, because obviously you would like to give yourself as many opportunities as you can. I like to think of myself when I was young that I could have fell into a few different sports. Mm-hmm. If I would have given it a good go. But as I say, football was what I loved the most, and I didn't really let anything have a chance to get in the way of it.
Well, you've used a phrase that I've seen you and heard you using before, which I really, really like. I've seen you talking about something about arriving. Like, for example, did you grow up like devoted to Tottenham, or not really devoted to one single club as you're growing up?
Yeah, my dad supported Tottenham, but my dad was in and out of my life as a young kid, so it had an influence on me. That was kind of my first team, but then my best friend supported Millwall. So when I was 7 or 8, his dad took me to Millwall with my friend.
Down the old den?
The old den, which just shows you how tough things were back then, a young black kid going to the old den, And
again, there might be some listening who don't quite know what that means, and I'm going to tread quite carefully here, but I do remember David Moyes talking to me about going to try to sign Tim Cahill with his chairman from Everton, and them being absolutely petrified as they drove up to Millwall, and the car was sort of attacked and rocked, and it was a raucous place.
It was, yeah. And I didn't know that before I went there, how intimidating it was of a place. I went quite a few times, and I saw racism around me, which was disappointing for a young kid.
Constantly directed at opposition players?
Players, their own players. Which kind of made me uncomfortable going. So, I stopped going there, and
because you're still a kid at this stage.
Yeah,
so
I'm 8 years old. I'm 8 years old at this time. There was people in the seats next to me shouting things.
It's literally. It's not the purpose of this chat. But it's literally unbelievable when you see it or you hear it.
Yeah,
you're like, where does this come from? How can you think like that?
Yeah, I mean, and really, I've been fortunate that I've not really experienced racism through my career. But obviously, this is going back to the early this is the late 80s now, and it was still a big part of some football grounds, and that kind of put me off for sure. Going there, put me off Millwall,
I'd say.
and I kind of went in the direction of Tottenham again.
Well, the reason I set that up, I took a risk by asking, because you might have said, yeah, I've loved Tottenham since I was 3. I've seen you standing and talking about Spurs and saying when you got there, you kind of just fell in love. I don't know if it was with the club or the fans or the ideal of the football, but I felt that the stadium had something to do with it too. And it's just a really good expression. I get really excited by people expressing, like, I love this stadium, I love the first time I saw the pitch, or I love a brand of football.
Yeah.
These things happened to you today at age 14, 15 or something?
Yeah, 14. And it was really simple, it was the training facilities. And, looking back, they were nothing special. But at the time, they felt special. And it felt like somewhere where I could develop. And obviously the coaches play a big part in that. Being able to feel that you're going to learn quickly from these guys, and it was as simple as that. I loved where we were training. It was like an indoor. It was at the stadium, and there was an indoor ball court, we used to call it, which was like artificial grass, and it had 2 goals. So again, it was back to the cage, kind of vibe.
Yeah.
We used to play off walls, and I felt right at home, and I was able to develop again. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same facility, but about a year ago we went over to where Terry Venables has his hotel, just north of Alicante, and he talked about the days back then of coming to a facility like that. Let's not say it definitely was, but it was the walls and it was the drills of knocking the ball, back into circles and hitting certain points, and also the game being fully on. And I think it was Dave Mackay who he tangled with, and Dave did him heavily, and Terry got. Were the games then still like the cage when you were? Yeah,
because you could find yourself in really tight situations, up against the wall at times, and you've got to try and wriggle your way out or find a pass. So it's familiar for me. I felt right at home, and as I say before, I quickly developed there and was able to progress. And I think again, being in that environment. With a ball court, instead of the cage fencing, it was just playing off walls, which was something that I was used to.
And it's not for the soft, is it, of mind? Again, you talked before at the cage about being able to use your body and shield and move and turn and show one way and go the other, and these things you had. Yeah,
exactly. As I say, the ball's never going out. You obviously got to stay alive as well. You've got to read certain bounces, the way balls bounce. It's just a really good education, and it's something that the first team have now. We have world-class facilities that we've just recently moved to, and in the middle of it we have an indoor ball court. It's not as small as the one that we used to play, and it's not necessarily playing off the walls the same way we used to do, but it does remind me of where I started.
Still asking some of the same things about touch and vision and speed and distribution and things.
I mean, you could set it up the same way, possibly, to be able to play off walls, which is great.
Who are the characters then? Who strike you immediately from the kit man to the coach to the fellow players? Who are the ones that stand out there as you go there, as you're just going, wow, this is for me? Who are the standouts?
As a 14-year-old, Peter Crouch, for obvious reasons.
One of the funniest guys you've ever met?
Well, the tallest guy I've ever seen.
Okay, we can play sort of adjective table tennis for a while, but
also character. And
big character.
We hit it off straight away.
Yeah.
And it was funny because the way we first kind of got acquainted was, as I said, I come from Bow, so we used to have a game called Money Up, which basically you say you had 50p and you're playing with 4 friends, you'd stand behind the line, and it would be who could throw their 50p the closest to a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So-
spent my school years playing that.
Yeah, exactly.
We can, once the tape's off, we can have a little game.
I was addicted to this game at school, so somehow I managed to bring it to Tottenham. And Crouchy had never heard of it, never played it in his life.
Does he still owe you money on it?
No, do you know what? He won. I think we was playing with our subs, our pounds. I think we had a couple of pound subs, and there's quite a few of us played with pounds, and Crouchy won them all.
No.
He'd never played the game before, so
The boy's talented.
they weren't too happy. People weren't too happy with him because he was a beginner, and he had that beginner's luck. But that's kind of how we started.
You sort of throw it like almost like a tiny frisbee throw,
That's the one.
and you've got to get it right up next to the wall, touching if you possibly
closest
can.
to the wall, kind of.
Oh, I love that game so much.
Yeah.
Well, that's how to make a friendship, I suppose.
Yeah, there's a lot of friendships start.
He
start
told
that
us, and I was just as gooey about that as well, that when he was young, his dad used to say to him, train, learn, get better, or whatever. One of the reasons that we asked him to come and talk to us was that I've always loved watching him playing, and I always thought people described him wrongly.
Yeah, of course.
In the football, they always like aerial or height and whatever. And I watched what he tried to do with the ball, and I was like, I'll turn the TV on just to watch you. And he told us about going down the park with the curver method. His dad brought a coach over from Holland to teach him skills and that. Could you see at the time that there was technique?
Definitely. I mean, his heading was the weakest part of his game as a kid, and I think it's natural for it to be. My heading was weak, and I was probably the second tallest.
Is that because you don't have to jump when you're a kid? Because your height means that you don't have to learn it.
I think that you don't. I don't think you have many situations, and it's not something that's probably not practiced enough as a kid. Especially, as I say, if I played in the cage, I didn't have any crosses really to try and be heading in. It was very rare, or goal kicks. Big long goal kicks, and I'm a centre half trying to head them. It didn't really happen. So it really wasn't part of my education. So it's something that you kind of develop as you get older and as you work on. And I think that's probably the same for Crouchy. He was technically very good.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about him. The way he wanted to play the game. Yeah. He had the same kind of instincts as me in terms of, we loved trying to play with a bit of style and a bit of grace, and Crouchy always had that. And I think he used to drive some of the coaches crazy because they wanted him to be a big man.
Do what he looked like, not what he could do.
Yeah.
That's so British.
But, and I think that's really why he had to leave and kind of come back, because he wasn't doing what he looked like he should be doing.
He went off to hoops, didn't he? He went off to QPR.
Yeah, he did. He left as a young kid, but he's had a fantastic career. And I've looked back at some of the goals he scored, and they're unbelievable.
And as well as the technique, you have to have what you've just described. You both had. You have to have this ideal about. Listen, I don't just want to score. Yeah. Could I get that in there? I've seen something there. Or you've got to be a bit daring and cheeky.
Yeah, of course. But that's something that we used to practice after training as kids. We used to work on shooting, different types of shooting, volleys. We used to play certain little games where the losers would have to collect all the balls in after we'd booted them all over the training ground, or the loser. I actually remember the loser wasn't allowed to drive home. He wasn't allowed to come home in a car that he got there in. He had to take the train, or he wasn't allowed to get a lift back.
Cool,
there was a lot of pressure on these kind of things.
I'd say
it's something that we used to do daily.
If I can pick up on style, I'll offer up my opinion. Although I think that the Spurs fans that I know best, hello Mick, hello Duncan, adore you for some of the absolutely Errol Flynn swashbuckling things you did when maybe those around you let you down and you were saving Spurs last ditch. And I think that's one of the things that our society, where it's all in 10-second clips, portrays you as. But what I watched was somebody who wanted to win the ball and play it all the time, that you were, I'm not going to go into the Pep Guardiola playing out from the back all the way, but you seem to think that the ball was to be won and not just hoofed for somebody else to deal with it. You want to do something creative with it. Is that true? And by the time you're getting your first team chance, how keen was George on that? Two different questions.
Yeah, that was the way I played. I very rarely kicked the ball out of play. Very rarely. Always thought there was a way out, another option. Sometimes there wasn't. Sometimes you just had to it had to go. But again, whether this comes back from being in a cage where you work your way out of situations, maybe that was it. I'm not sure. You know, it's just
You
my,
need
my
nerve.
way.
You do need to, however good your technique is, however much you want to keep the ball.
But there's a obviously there's a balance between making mistakes that cost the team, and I learned that, you know, as a young kid, because, you know, George Graham probably thought of me more as a midfield player, and I'd played in defence all my life as a Tottenham player, of course, you know, from 14, and I think he thought maybe I'd take too many risks, and he played me in midfield, and I remember making a mistake in the final. It was the Worthington Cup. It was a mistake, but it was something that I've looked back and I'm not sure if I'd change, if I changed what I tried to do.
Can you remember what happened?
Yeah, it was a long ball. You know, we was playing three centre halves. I think I was playing right-sided centre half, and it was a long ball, and I was stretching, kind of leaning back to try and get my head on it, and I've got my head on it, but it's only popped up, bounced 5 yards ahead in front of me, and by the time I've got to the bounce of the ball's back at my head height. Someone's running in at me, and I've tried to take a small touch with my head to get it down to my foot to clear it.
Yeah.
Because my thinking was, if I headed it, it would have went another 5 yards, and it wasn't really doing anything. But as I've headed it down to try and clear it away, someone's nicked in and kind of toe poked it away, and they broke and scored. I think it was a winning goal in the final. Andy Cole scored, and it was a cheap goal. But
This isn't the Blackburn game, is it?
It is a Blackburn game.
Yeah.
It is a Blackburn game,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would change it, although that hurt at the time. And in a funny way, it did make me look at things differently, where I really have to balance out.
Calculating the risk.
Yeah, the risk.
Yeah.
So for a little while, it was kind of, it does maybe put you in a shell for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to make mistakes. You know, you don't want to be that player that costs the team. But obviously, as I kind of developed and kept moving, I kind of calculated when I can and when you can't. As I say, recently I look back at that, and
The idea, the concept was right, and therefore you don't change
I think
it.
So, and I think that's something that I always, you know, throughout my career, I always, you know, tried to find that balance, and that was the way I played the game, and I think that was, you know, I think I was trying to do the right thing.
Well, I'm quite certain you don't need reassurance. I'm just saying this for conversation and so other people know that when the keepers were asked to play at the back at Barcelona, they were told, just do it, and do it, and do it, and do it. And if you're pressed or you're caught, it's the coach's responsibility. Do it again, and do it again. And as long as you're doing the right thing, and if it goes wrong once or twice, the overall gain for doing the right thing will be enough.
Yeah. And I think that's the way kids are coached now. And it's something that I learned because I've done a little bit of time with the under-18s. And you have to let people have all the tools that they can. You know, you can't box them into playing one way. You know, you allow them to work it out themselves, but you've got to allow them to have every tool they can. You know, and that means making mistakes. You know, until you finally work out how you can do it. But you know, I always say that players can start off at the back or start off at left back and end up in midfield or striker because of their tools as a young kid. You know, the more developed you are, the more tools you have, give you the more opportunities to play, and especially in different positions.
Effectively, it's a really nice description of what the Dutch call total football. Yeah. Do you have the skills and the mentality to be able to switch and drag teams about if you have to? One of the guys, I promise not to bang on and on about Barcelona because, you know, people say to me, you always mention Barcelona, but I'm going to now because there's a guy who came to Barcelona and you played with, and it had a catalytic effect on Barcelona when the elections changed and Laporta took over and Rijkaard came in, and the first half of the season was just atrocious. Yeah. They were higgledy-piggledy, they weren't fit enough to press. Not everybody knew what was going on. They were thrashed by Malaga, thrashed by Racing Santander. And at Christmas, Rijkaard decided that somebody he knew from Ajax, who was bouncing around, might do a job. Yeah. And they signed Edgar Davids. and he arrived unfit because he'd been out. And within about a game and a half, the sharpness was coming back.
Yeah,
and I watched Ronaldinho go like, because they'd never played together, and Ronaldinho was in his pomp then.
Yeah.
And he looked at him and he went, are you just a soldier, or you can play? And they went like that.
Yeah.
And then I watched Xavi, who at that stage was playing in the Busquets role in the middle of midfield, supposedly organising and holding, and far from where he needed to be in terms of opening things up. You could see him game by game and training session by training session go, that's what you need to be elite and competitive. And the impact David's had in 6 months at Barcelona was extraordinary. What was it like when he came to your place?
Did he join? He joined off the back of that, didn't he?
He did.
He did, yeah.
Frank Rijkaard was absolutely distraught because he said, stay, new contract. And he went, no, I'm getting better money. And off he went, which is everybody's right. But they fell out a little bit over it.
That was a great signing. And I think because at the time we had a young team, I was still learning to try and be the captain of the team. And to bring in someone of his experience was great. I remember the first day he came in and we sat in the canteen and we had a chat and he said, what can we win? That was his first question. What can we win?
It's a good question.
And that was his mentality. He was a winner. He wanted to win things, and I think he brought the best out of everyone in that team. He had a role in kind of taking us from that 8th, 9th, 10th position to all of a sudden knocking on the door for top 4. I think we finished 5th twice under Martin Yeo, and Edgar was a big part of that. I think he just lifted everyone and helped to get that little bit more out of everyone. And he was a great player, great worker as well.
If you could put meat in the bones about what you mean about lifting or showing or changing, how effectively on a daily basis, how does a guy like that do that?
Yeah, well, I think that when you're a young player and you see a player that's done it, won everything, and you see the work ethic on the training pitch, everyone follows suit. So Edgar would, after training was finished, Edgar would be still out there working on things. He would work on things with the young players as well. He'd say, come here and do this with me.
For his benefit or for theirs, do you think?
Both. And that's what that's what it should be. He wasn't a coach. He was a player who's got great experience and wants to improve his teammates, his young players, and everyone wanted to impress him.
Oh, that's a great phrase. I understand that.
Of course you do. When you get a superstar like Edgar come to your place, you want to show him what you can do.
Tough tackler? Tough to play against?
Yeah, he was known as a pit bull, and that's what he was. He was quick over the ground. But a lot of people left out how technically good he was, and that was something that he worked on all the time. He loved one-on-ones. After training, he would love to try and pull me aside and come on, let's do one-on-ones. And he would try and run at me and work his skills. And obviously, he used to get quite heated. Because Edgar would try and rub it in if he scored.
Yeah.
He would talk while he's going at you, and it was his competitive nature, and it was great.
What about when I talked previously about, and again, it must be you that takes this. I'm just laying up my ideas. I think that people in Britain, we do like extremes of like everybody up and drama and control. I don't think is something that we necessarily opt for. It's not part of our nature. I think we're quite a dramatic, sort of warlike race, and therefore that sometimes shows in our football. Whereas I would say that in your ideal match, you'd probably be controlling the ball and using it, but somehow or other, partially because of maybe what you're facing on the people around you, there was quite a lot of times where Spurs were caught out, and part of your legend to Spurs fans is dealing with that, kind of like bailing water and getting back, and you managed to produce a series of extraordinary interceptions, which I'd like to understand better, while getting booked. I mean, you're sort of Mary Poppins style booking count. You're
7 or 8.
7?
Yeah.
See, I've even exaggerated. It's 8, 7. One, to try and explain your attitude to when the ball's gone by somebody and you've got to rescue the team, or maybe you were at position. I'm not trying to say you're infallible. and how you did it without getting booked. It's an extraordinary achievement.
It's an instinct. As a kid, I didn't really like going to ground. I think I was always quick across the ground, and from an early age, I just developed a theory that once you go to ground, you're out of the game. And I always felt, even if someone went past me, I could get back at them if I stood on my feet. Obviously, there was times where you have to go to ground, but as much as I could, I tried to stay on my feet and make people beat you. Make people. Even if they beat you, I thought that I could try and get back at you, and you might have to try and beat me again, which is obviously difficult to do twice. But that was it, really. That was just the way I played the game. I didn't try not to think about it too much, and it's difficult. Sometimes you don't know. You're just doing it. You're doing what you do. And sometimes it's difficult to try to explain to people because everyone has different tools, different gifts, and that was something that I was kind of blessed with.
Who were the strikers when they were coming up and you're playing like that? You're like, I love this bat, or I know I've got him in my pocket, or oof, I don't enjoy this one. Yeah. If you go across your career,
I never really said I had anyone in my pocket until the game was over, because strikers can be quiet for 90 minutes and score a goal, and if they've scored a goal, I wouldn't say I had them in my pocket. Do you know what I mean? They have to not score for me to feel that I had them in my pocket. But I enjoy playing against all the best strikers because I wanted to test myself. I wanted to be what I believed in my own head. You need to play against the best to bring out the best in you, and for people to see how good you are is the best. So I love playing against Thierry. I love playing against Drogba. Whoever was the best, that kind of used to excite me.
What did Thierry do that was difficult for you?
Thierry drifted around the pitch. Thierry would go out on the left, so he was out of my zone.
Did you go?
There's times where you can't. Of course, as a centre half, and that's what makes. When we talk about the best players, you look at Messi, you look at Ronaldo, and they're not really up against you. Do you know what I mean? They can pick balls up from 30 yards, 40 yards, and they can get running with the ball. Ronaldo a little bit less now because he's playing up top a little bit more now. But players who can affect the game from 30 yards out, 40 yards out, be in different areas of the pitch and affect the game, they're the ones that they're difficult, because if I had confidence in myself, playing up against you one-on-one, that's one thing. But once you go on the left or right, I have to put trust in other people.
Are you peripherally kind of watching what's going on as well as doing what's now in front of you too, if they've drifted off?
When they're the top players, you know that they can beat someone very easy, and that opens up spaces, that pulls people out of positions, just opens up a whole new world. So of course you're aware of you might have to cover and help, but also the top players can find a pass that can you can't switch off basically with these players. You're always alert. Once certain players get around 30, 40 metres around, you've got to have all your antennas up, expecting danger.
You've mentioned him. Was Drogba a very physical battle? Is Drogba bigger than you?
Similar size.
So it wasn't a case of being bullied?
No. I mean, it wasn't a case of being bullied. Drogba was strong, but he wasn't just strong. He had very good feet, great in the air. He could score goals. He scored lots of different types of goals. That's what he could do. If a cross came in, you knew that there was a good chance that he'd get his head on it. But he could score unexpected goals as well. He could score volleys, as we've seen him do. He could turn and bang shots in from 20, 30 yards. So yeah, he was one of the best. He wasn't just a big man. He could also run. He could also hold the ball up when he needed to, bring other people into play. But he was also a goal threat. And often with big men, you can often get they're great at holding up the ball, or they're great in the air, but they're not so much of a goal threat. Drogba had a bit of everything, where he maintained everything, being strong, being able to hold the ball up, being able to turn and get shots off. And Adebayor was a bit the same when he was at his best, when he was at his prime. Can do a bit of everything. And they're difficult.
He was very skilled, wasn't he?
They're difficult guys, yeah.
How many of them tried, across your career, how many tried to sort of trick you with movement? Or how many were in your ear trying to put you off?
Yeah.
Or
None in my ear.
You're
Didn't
joking?
really happen, no. Didn't really happen.
Wow.
Thierry was nice. Thierry would talk about, he was really friendly with me, which I didn't like because as a defender, you're trying to concentrate and you don't really want someone
alone.
having. At the same time, you're thinking it's Thierry, you've got to respect him.
That's a good upbringing. That is.
Don't put me off my game. I'm fully focused here.
I've never heard that, honestly.
Yeah, so I always felt strikers they can play quite relaxed. I think defensively you have to be switched on the whole time, and that's the way I like to.
And you weren't the type to frighten or bully somebody or try and scare them.
No, because for me talk's cheap anyway. Do you know what I mean? I think you try to do it by your actions. I think there was one person going back. I think Paul Dickoff was someone who gave me a little bit of verbals once.
Paul, we follow each other on Twitter. You're a target for us for the future. Paul was born in Scotland, so
yeah, exactly. And
we're like that. We're like that.
He's the nicest guy in the world.
He is.
Off the pitch,
I think he would admit he was a terrier.
Yeah. But I didn't. My reaction was okay in my head. All right, now you're not going to get a kick, rather than giving him the mouth back. Because at the same time, I didn't want to sell myself to talking too much, and then he gets a hat trick. You know what I mean? That's no good. So let's keep focused. Let's do my job on him now, and that's the way I was. Let's
talk about a couple of happy times, I hope. In your career, you did things that weren't very regular for Spurs. 2002, January, Tottenham Hotspur 5, Chelsea 1. An absolute bosker. Everson, Sherwood, Sheringham, Simon Davis, Rebrov. Do you remember the occasion? Do you remember what was at risk? Hoddle the manager, Ronnie Area the manager?
Yeah, of course.
What? Instantly I say that, what comes to you?
It was one of them magical days at the Lane, under the floodlights, where everything went right. We didn't put a foot wrong all game. There was another one further down in my career against Arsenal, but that was my first magical experience at the Lane. As a 21-year-old, we were 2-1 down in the first leg, playing against a good team, good Chelsea team.
And it was.
And it was one of them magical days, magical nights, and obviously we reached the final with that performance. And at the time, you think that these finals are going to come around all the time, which obviously I learned they don't.
You did have quite a few of them.
Not three. I did play 3 finals, a few semi-finals, but that was my first experience as a 21-year-old, and as I say, it was one of my first real magical.
What was sung? What was the crowd like? What was the atmosphere like? Or are you going to tell me you're unaware of that because you're so focused?
There's certain games where they're just different, and I think that obviously the fans were up for the game. It was a massive game, semi-final, but it was also the way we started the game. And when you start a game and you get on top and you score early in the game,
2 minutes in, Everton,
then you're just going downhill, so to speak. The crowd lifted us. We just kept going. We just kept going, and you kind of playing without thinking. You're just playing on emotions and passion, and yeah, we was too much for them. They couldn't handle us.
Further down the line, I was going to raise it too. Jermaine Jenas, Nicholas Bentner, Robbie Keane, Aaron Lennon, Adebayor got one back, sorry. Steve Malbranck.
Bentner, you said Bentner?
Bentner got the second for 2-0.
That
can't be right.
Yeah.
Jermaine Jenas scored, Keane, Lennon, Steed, Emmanuel Adebayor for Arsenal. 5-1 it finishes. Yeah. January 2008. Juan de Ramos in charge. One of his glory moments. Again, memories of that.
Similar thing.
Better because it's Arsenal or Chelsea? Better because it's Arsenal.
I think so. Also, this was the second time I'd reached the final. Obviously, little bit older now, you start to wonder, are you going to win anything? So, being captain, obviously against the rivals, as you say, when we wasn't doing too great in the league, probably was a little bit, had that little bit more about it. And but again, so similar in terms of the night. Just, I'm sure we scored an early goal again, and
Jermaine after 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah. So that's the key. Get an early goal, get the fans behind you, and we'll beat you 5-1.
You're very diplomatic. But, this isn't a visual medium, but as he was thinking about it, Ledley's smile just got bigger and bigger and bigger until the laugh erupted. Wander Ramos, I have to ask, as somebody who kind of watched him and knew what his Seville team was all about, and you won a trophy under him, but it was a mismatch experience. And I seem to remember Aurelio Gomez saying that the food regime with the sort of vitamin mush balls and whatever, and the stripping out of treats in the training ground made him feel like he was on starvation rations. And how bad was the kitchen under Wander Ramos?
Yeah, it changed quite a bit. I think the first thing he said that everyone was overweight when he came. I think he took 22 players from Seville, 22 players from Tottenham, and said we're 100 kg more than them for the 22 players. But everyone's bodies are built differently. The Premier League's a little bit more physical.
A lot.
So that was the first thing.
Doesn't win your friends.
Yeah. And everyone had to lose weight. There was one player that didn't have to lose weight, just one.
Was there a Spaniard in the team?
Nope. I don't think there was a Spaniard, but...
Hold on, I'm going to cheat here.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you a clue. He scored in the game.
Jermaine?
Yeah. Which one though?
Defoe?
No.
Genius?
Yeah. Genius was the only one who was fit, so to speak.
You said that with a degree of bitterness there.
Yeah, I had between 7 and 8% body fat.
What?
But I still had to lose weight. So I think there's a way of weighing, and you can come out obese if you're a sports person, because I forget the words of it now, but if you take certain body mass or certain height and blah blah blah,
it's never really troubled me. I can't help you on that one.
So, but we stuck by it and we ended up winning something. So I can't complain. But yeah, some players lost a lot of weight. I think Paul Robinson, goalkeeper, I remember him losing a lot of weight. Tom Huddleston. But I think we did become a fitter team for it. The way he wanted to play was counter-attack football. When we went forward, he wanted to go forward with speed and to have energy. So as players, you just have to follow the manager's rules.
That is, that's a fair answer.
Yeah.
That isn't always true, because managers that we speak to in the series or I've learned from, they're aware that it's not like I'm the boss and you boys play for me. There is a degree where you have to get a core of the players saying, I might not like it, but I'm into this.
Yeah, but it's difficult to argue with. We want you to be fitter. We want you to lose some weight. I think you got to be open. You got to be. This was a new manager coming in. We'd seen that he had success. We wanted success. Did we agree with it? Some didn't, of course. But let's give it a go. Let's see how we feel.
And it brought you a trophy.
It did, yeah.
What's the moment like when you think back to the cage, think back to, I presume your mum sacrificed things or encouraged you, and you're at the club that you've fallen in love with, and you're like, the whistle's coming, or we're leading, or again. I'm asking about the emotions and when you can disconnect from have to win, concentrate. What happens when you're the leader and you win a big trophy at a stadium like that?
All of a sudden, you start to think, it's not as hard as I thought. Once you've got that first taste, and it's something that you want more of. we got to the final the next year, lost on penalties.
Mm-hmm. To United.
To United, yeah. So all of a sudden you've kind of got over a hurdle that a lot of players in my team had never won anything. I remember obviously Robbie was there from a young age as well with me in a similar position. Hadn't won anything, and 26, 27 at that time, and you're starting to think, am I ever going to win anything? So I think there was a feeling of relief that we've achieved something. But throughout the game, you're always wondering, is it not going to be our day again? Until that whistle comes, and when it does, then as I say, you have that belief that you can go into each season and win something, which obviously it's not been the case, but it did give us a lift. But obviously we've lost. After that, teams get broken up, you lose some players, and that was a difficulty. Having to start again with different groups of players, which has always been tough during my time at Tottenham.
I want to close by, because your time's precious, you've given us a lot, I want to close by asking about sentiment. And you're an ambassador for Spurs.
Yeah.
So it's very clear that they're doing the right thing by moving to Wembley, building a new stadium. So let's just accept that progress and bigger stadium and bigger revenue is a good thing. But you're losing a precious thing. You're losing the lane.
Yeah.
I want to try and understand what the bricks and mortar of that place, the people that work there, the noises, the sounds, the memories that are now bulldozed meant to you. Are you sentimental? Do you have a seat in the back garden? Have you taken any mementos? Or knock me down and say it's a load of rubbish. I'm not sentimental. Progress is everything.
Yeah, I'm not that sentimental. But what I take with me is my memories. In terms of, the first time I turned up at the stadium as a kid, the ball court, which is no longer there and hasn't been there for years. I'll never forget these things. Being out there, making my debut, first at home, my home debut. How the fans reacted to me and how they still do. You have to move with the times, I believe. Obviously, we've had some great memories and great history at that stadium, but we're now hoping that we can create some more memories in the new stadium, and things do move on with time. As I said, the new training facility that the team moved to probably 5 years ago.
It's sensational. Around Europe, I tell you, clubs talk about it around Europe.
Yeah, of course. And if Tottenham want to be a club that is competing on all levels and known as one of the biggest clubs around, and these are the steps that we're going to have to take. And of course, there's a lot of people that are sad about the stadium going, but I think the great thing is that we're not moving. We're not moving from White Hart Lane. Obviously the new stadium will have a different name, but we have to move with the times, and hopefully, as I say, we can create some more special moments in the new stadium.
Apart from earning a good living, enjoying yourself and lifting trophies, is it nice spending your career feeling love? Because not many players get that.
Yeah. Of course, I've got such a great relationship with the fans. But it wasn't something that I thought about. It was never in my thinking. It was just going along with how I felt at the time, which was happy at Tottenham. Obviously I wanted to compete for as much as I could, but you remember I was injured. I had my knee problems from the age of from 26 to when I retired, 31. That obviously had an impact on me, but I saw the way the fans reacted to when I was playing. Every time my name was called out, how much I meant to them, and that was important to me. I loved that feeling, and as I say, I was very happy there. I was comfortable in terms of, I've always felt the club was going in the right direction. I feel that if I'd have been fit, then we could have been a better team, a team that could have come maybe close to winning. Or we would have won more things, more trophies, been close to maybe winning the league. But I was just in a happy place, and for me that was important in my career.
You put us in a happy place. It's not a cliche, it's the truth. This has been everything that we expected it to be. I hope some of the big interviews, admiration for the kind of person that you are and player that you are, has come through. Thank you. Can I make a little deal with you?
Go on. Yeah.
I think you're going to manage. I think you're going to take some of the things that you learned from Joel and Harry Redknapp that you're going to manage. So a couple of seasons into your managerial career, and things are calm and you're under control on it. Let's do this again and talk about management and the process of management.
We've got a deal for sure.
Oh, come on. I am the deal maker. Ledley King.
Appreciate it.
Very much indeed.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Absolutely sensational. Now then, there goes Ledley. I think he was fantastic. My opinion is that without much help from me, he proved himself to be an intelligent, articulate, thoughtful football man. And the stories were good. Thank you to Ledley for being such a gent and so generous with your time. Had it been not such a busy day for you, you'd have been pinned to that table for a good 45 minutes more, Ledley, I promise you. But also thanks to Josh from 7 of the Best for setting the interview up. Lads, you were great. Now, as promised, here's how Ledley's game works. Every week, you select 7 game results, not scores, from English and Scottish football. Select 5 wins, a banker, and a draw. You can play individually or as part of a team of 7 of your mates. Each week, the player with the top score will win 250 quid. Each week, the team with the top score will win 700 quid. If an individual player correctly predicts 4 weeks in a row, they'll win £1 million. Now, socios, I require 6 of you to join me in my team. Tell me you're up for it in the comments under this post on Patreon, and we will select 6 of you at random to take part with me in the first round of fixtures after the international break. Come on, vamos!